What you're looking at is the aftermath of a drone strike. But this isn't Ukraine, it's not Gaza, this is Port Sudan, which was hit between May the 4th to 7th amid the country's brutal civil war. Drones in war aren't new, but what's happening in Sudan is a militia once mounted on camels and horseback now fields long-range UAVs, capable of hitting cities 1,200 kilometers away, and with precision. What does this photo evidence tell us about Sudan's civil war and the drones being used to fight it? Let's break down the drone war that's hiding in plain sight in this episode of Photo Evidence. This is Port Sudan, the country's de facto capital, which is under the control of the Sudanese Armed Forces, or the SAF. If we zoom in here, we can see damage caused by a drone flown by the Rapid Support Forces, or the RSF, the militia fighting for control of the country. In early May 2025, drones launched from deep inside the country struck here. These weren't random hits, the targets were strategic. Fuel depots, power stations, and the country's last international airfield. And they hit a city that had become a refuge. Port Sudan was sheltering over 250,000 displaced people, families fleeing the war's front lines. This here is Port Sudan International Airport, the country's last functioning international airfield located right on the Red Sea. Just north of it sits the Osman Digna Air Base, a heavily guarded military site long considered one of the most secure locations for Sudan's air operations. Here we see satellite imagery from May the 2nd, which shows the base before it was hit, a standard military installation. But satellite imagery from May the 8th shows a shift. A base once thought safe has now been compromised. It was struck by drones launched from over 1,200 kilometers away. The likely culprit? Kamikaze drones, improvised unmanned aerial vehicles. Satellite images show the damage. An Ilyushin 76, a Soviet-era military transport plane heavily damaged by a drone strike. The drones were most likely launched from as far as Al-Altran, a remote RSF base near the borders with Libya and Chad, or Yala here, flown hundreds of kilometers across desert terrain and through army-controlled airspace. This wasn't just a haphazard attack, it was a calculated operation. The RSF sent a swarm of 11 kamikaze drones towards the Osman Digna Air Base, a heavily defended military site. Most were shot down, but that was the point. According to Sudan's military, the swarm acted as a diversion, designed to overwhelm SAF defences and mask a single strategic drone, which slipped through and hit its target, a Soviet-era transport plane. This was military deception in action. On May the 4th, NASA's Fire Information for Resource Management System detected 2 heat signatures over the Osman Digna Air Base. Thermal imagery captured by NASA's satellite fire detection system confirmed the extent of the strike, showing significant heat at the location, likely from the drone impact. One theory is that the RSF used signal jammers attached to their drones, potentially blocking or interfering with the SAF's radar and countermeasures, though there is no direct evidence confirming this. It was more than a physical attack, it was psychological warfare. The goal may not have been total destruction, rather to undermine confidence in the SAF's ability to protect what was once seen as Sudan's most secure military zones. So how did a desert militia pull off something this sophisticated? To answer that, we need to understand who the RSF are and how they've evolved. The Rapid Support Forces, or RSF, didn't start out as a high-tech militia. They were born from the Janjaweed, the feared camel and horse-mounted militias that terrorized Darfur in the early 2000s. Back then, their tactics were brutal and simple: sweep into villages on horseback, burn homes, steal livestock, and kill indiscriminately. Here is evidence of such tactics. Here are images of the city El Janina, which was the site of widespread burning, massacres, and mass grave. The first image, taken in April 2023, shows a relatively intact urban landscape. In contrast, this image from March 2024 shows large sections burnt. Burn patterns and structural damage are consistent with targeted burning. In some parts, whole areas have been destroyed and cleared, such as here in the city's northwest. As you can see, the RSF were known for scorched earth warfare, not sophisticated strategy. But by mid-2023, as Sudan's civil war escalated, the RSF began using drones. This drone image shows clouds of black smoke over Bari, also known as Khartoum North, in early May 2023. As fighting continued through mid-May, a fire raged through the city of Omdurman, just northwest of Khartoum. By April 2024, the RSF expanded its drone operations, including attacks from Jebel Aulia, south of Khartoum, targeting military sites in White Nile State and the capital. SAF air defences intercepted many of them, but the attempt itself marked a shift in RSF tactics. Since then, the RSF has refined its drone strategy, deploying more sophisticated UAVs and focusing on infrastructure attacks, airfields, power grids, ports, and fuel reserves. The growing capability didn't just stop at military sites. It signalled a shift in their focus to critical infrastructure. The next focus for the RSF's drone campaign, Nyala. Located in the heart of South Darfur, Nyala is one of the largest cities in the region and has become the RSF's power base. Strategically situated near the borders of Chad and the Central African Republic, Nyala provides the RSF not only with a central position in Darfur, but also with access to the supply lines and routes that run deep into neighbouring regions. It's here in Nyala that the RSF has quietly built its drone fleet. Between December 2024 and January 2025, researchers from Yale's Humanitarian Lab identified at least 3 UAVs at the RSF-controlled Nyala airport. This here is a close-up of this part here. These were Chinese-made FH-95s, multi-role combat drones with a 250-kilometre range, 24-hour endurance, and the capacity to carry guided missiles and jamming equipment. The FH-95s are a significant leap in the RSF's capabilities, transforming them from a local militia into a force capable of executing sophisticated, long-range attacks. Satellite imagery from between the 3rd and 13th of January show at least 30 new storage containers parked on Nyala Airport's apron, indicating a logistical build-up at the RSF's drone hub. This technology raises a deeper question. Who is funding and arming the RSF? The answer? A global network of states and corporate actors quietly fueling Sudan's war. China has long been involved in arms deals across Africa. Official visits like this one, Ghana Navy representatives with Feng Zhu of China's Africa Department, reflect how Beijing continues to deepen military ties across Africa. The FH-95 drones likely reached the RSF through covert transfers, giving them the range and firepower to strike far beyond Darfur. But China isn't alone. The UAE's support is even more operational, directly funneling drones, munitions, and spare parts into RSF-controlled zones. The Sudanese military accused the UAE of arming the RSF with drones used in the Port Sudan attacks. Hours later, they announced a severing of diplomatic ties with the UAE and began withdrawing embassy staff from Abu Dhabi, according to Sudan's state news agency. Looking at the network supporting the RSF in Sudan, an intriguing web emerges, with the UAE at the centre. This networked approach to governance connects Libya, Wagner, and the war in Yemen influencing the strategic situation in Sudan. Despite a UN arms embargo on Darfur, newly manufactured weapons from Russia, Turkey, Yemen, and China continue to reach both sides of the conflict, often diverted from civilian markets or smuggled through open borders. A recent Amnesty International investigation tracked more than 1,900 shipment records, analysed over 2,000 verified images, and confirmed that these arms are ending up in the hands of groups accused of war crimes. The war in Sudan isn't just locally fought, it's globally supplied, and its impact is being felt in places once thought untouchable. Take Port Sudan. In early May 2025, the RSF launched multiple drone strikes on the city, including a direct hit on the petroleum depot just 10 kilometres from the city centre. The Iron Network, an independent media outlet, posted footage showing an active fire at the depot. Planet Lab satellite image from that day revealed a large smoke plume and an ongoing fire at one of the fuel silos. On May the 6th, the Sudan Media Council confirmed another attack on the Port Sudan converter station, a vital part of the city's power infrastructure. The strike disrupted not only the power supply, but also the water supply, leaving parts of the city in darkness. But the drone strikes didn't stop there. Witnesses reported that one of the drones also hit the Mariana Hotel, believed to be housing diplomats. The hotel, located near key government buildings, underscores how these attacks are not just military, targeting diplomatic infrastructure. These images marked the end of Port Sudan's sanctuary status, proving it was no longer beyond the reach of war. By early 2024, over 249,000 displaced people had sought refuge here in Port Sudan, fleeing the escalating conflict. Public schools, abandoned dorms, and empty buildings became makeshift shelters. Aid groups set up camps in open fields. The SAF has blamed the RSF for the attacks, saying the drones came from the east over the sea, raising questions about their point of origin. The RSF has not responded. Drone strikes deep in Sudan show how militias are bypassing front lines, targeting vital infrastructure and resources. This next stage in the conflict adds a new and dangerous dimension to a war that has already killed tens of thousands and displaced more than 13 million people. A militia born of camels and horses now flies guided missile drones over Sudanese cities. Who's arming them? And what happens when a state loses control of the skies? We went to security analyst and author Dr. Andreas Krieg to find out.
Until recently, Sudan's conflict was defined by ground convoys, pickup trucks mounted with machine guns, and brutal scorched earth campaigns. But the introduction of drone technology has fundamentally changed this landscape. Both the Sudanese Armed Forces, or SAF, and the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, the RSF, have incorporated unmanned aerial systems into their arsenals. This has allowed them to extend the reach of their operations far beyond the traditional front lines. For the RSF in particular, drones have become a strategic equalizer. Unlike the Army, which fields aircrafts like the MiG-29M fighter jets or the Mi-17 helicopter, the RSF lacks a traditional air wing. But with drones, including Chinese-made Sunflower 200 suicide drones and the Chinese-made FH-95 multi-role drones used by the RSF, they can now launch precision attacks hundreds of kilometers away. These drones, with ranges of around 1,500 to 2,000 kilometers and different types of warheads, put virtually any site in Sudan within striking distance. The FH-95 drones are advanced Chinese UAVs capable of long-range surveillance and precision strikes. The existence of these drones has been well documented through satellite imagery at Niala Airport. These platforms give the RSF critical intelligence and the ability to direct attacks with devastating accuracy. And beyond these heavy drones, the RSF uses Serbian-made VTOL, vertical takeoff and landing drones, modified to drop 220mm mortar shells, effectively turning these small aircraft into airborne indirect fire systems. A major reason drones have become such an attractive tool for non-state actors like the RSF is their ease of proliferation. Unlike tanks or traditional fighter jets, drones can be shipped as component parts, disassembled, then reassembled on the ground, bypassing many sanctions or inspections. Without equating Ukraine's defensive operations against Russia to the RSF operations, operationally or militarily speaking, there are quite a lot of similarities to Ukraine's Operation Spider's Web, where disassembled FPV drones were hidden inside wooden mobile cabins and smuggled into Russia. The drone bodies and propellers were assembled into complete drones. Their modular, compact design makes them ideal for covert transport assembly, slipping easily into illicit supply chains and giving militias long-range strike capabilities they could never have achieved otherwise. Strategically, this has allowed the RSF to target fuel depots, airports, and humanitarian hubs in places like Port Sudan. It's a deliberate campaign to cripple Sudan's economy, spread psychological terror, and erode public faith in the army's ability to protect civilian lives. It's also a stark evolution for the RSF itself. As previously noted, the RSF has come a long way from its roots in Darfur's Janjaweed militias. Today, it draws on drone hangars, jamming systems, and encrypted networks, likely with the support from their main state sponsor, the United Arab Emirates. This shift from manpower-heavy guerrilla tactics to a hybrid model leveraging high-tech aerial tools marks a new chapter in Sudan's wars. The RSF's transformation has been underwritten by a covert international supply chain, most notably designed by the United Arab Emirates. Through a web of logistical hubs from Chad and Uganda to Somalia's Somaliland region, the UAE has facilitated shipments of drones, armed personnel carriers, that we can see here, munitions and spare parts, all while maintaining plausible deniability. This clandestine network has delivered everything from Chinese loitering munitions and UAVs to Serbian artillery systems, enabling the RSF to sustain its relentless campaigns. This growing reliance on drones by militias is not unique to Sudan. From Yemen to Libya to Ukraine, we've seen non-state actors and proxies exploit drone technology to wage asymmetric wars. Sudan stands out, however, as perhaps the clearest example in Africa of a militia backed by an ambitious foreign patron building an aerial strike capability that rivals the air arms of small states. The implications are profound. Civilians and aid workers, once able to operate relatively safely behind traditional front lines, now find themselves under threat from the sky. Key infrastructure that sustains entire regions, power grids, fuel depots, ports, become fair game. And fragile governments must reckon with the fact that militias can launch strikes on their capitals from hundreds of kilometers away. So what we're witnessing in Sudan is not just another tragic civil war. It's a preview of the future of warfare in fragile states where low-cost but high-impact technologies combined with clandestine foreign support allow militias to level the battlefield against national armies. To sum up, drones have revolutionized how war is fought in Sudan. They've enabled the RSF to shift from old guerrilla methods, such as their arson attacks on Zamzam camp, North Darfur in April this year, to orchestrating sophisticated long-range campaigns targeting critical infrastructure and undermining the state's monopoly on force. For a state sponsor like the United Arab Emirates, this drone pipeline generates strategic depth deep into Africa, with plausible deniability, as the main blame for violence and hostility is absorbed by the RSF militia.
The war in Sudan has entered a new phase, one defined not just by seizing and holding territory, but by technology and foreign influence.
It's a glimpse into the future of conflict in fragile states, where low-cost drones and foreign support can upend the balance of power.